I got straight on a plane to return. Seeing my wife have to be her strongest and knowing that it's the scariest of news.
At 61, Brad Pitt has shattered the silence that followed one of Hollywood's most iconic love stories. After decades of headlines, heartbreak, and hushed regrets, Brad's emotional confession about the love of his life has stunned fans. The name he finally said out loud wasn't a surprise, but the way he said it, and why he said it now, has everyone talking. Why now? Why her? And what does it all mean for where Brad stands today, emotionally, romantically, and personally? If you thought the Brad and Jen story was over, this confession might change everything. We'll break down what he said, how it unfolded, and why his words may carry more weight now than they ever did before. Before Jennifer, Hollywood's golden bachelor. Long before Jennifer Aniston entered the picture, Brad Pitt had already carved out his place as Hollywood's most eligible heartthrob. He wasn't just another pretty face. He was the poster boy for a generation. Raw, magnetic, and entirely unpredictable when it came to love. His dating history was a whirlwind of high-profile romances, intense chemistry, and tabloid obsession. And yet, beneath all the charm and attention, Brad Pitt remained an enigma, never quite giving the world a clear look at who he was or what he truly wanted. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Pitt's career was ascending rapidly. After his unforgettable cameo in Thelma and Louise, where he turned a few minutes of screen time into star power, his love life became just as talked about as his film roles. Early flings with stars like Robin Givens and Jill Schoelen kept him in the tabloids, but they were fleeting. The real spotlight landed when he started dating a young Juliette Lewis. Pitt was 27 years old. Lewis was only 17. They met on the sets of Too Young to Die? The people started talking about this affair since it had a huge age difference, but it went hot and fast. They were passionate, very public, and highly unapologetic about their feelings for each other. For a while, it had more in store for Lewis, as she seemed to be the one who could keep up with Brad's unpredictable life. But it didn't happen that way. Like all his early romances that just set his heart on fire, this smoldered just as quickly. After that, there was Gwyneth Paltrow, who straightened things up. Brad met Gwyneth on the set of C7N in 1994. Now, that was different from just another Hollywood dalliance. The two would be found glued to one another, all the time supposedly off to premieres, events, and vacations that graced every tabloid cover. Brad attempted to talk to Paltrow, but ended up fumbling with words, saying less than normal. The media was licking all of that, and for some time, they looked almost like a couple of superstitions come alive. They got engaged in 1996. Brad proposed with a custom-designed diamond ring and famously said he was only getting married once. They were Hollywood royalty in their prime, elegant, poised, and wildly admired. There were stories of him introducing her to his family, of wedding plans already underway. Fans thought they were witnessing a fairy tale unfolding in real time. But by 1997, it was over. The couple called off the engagement, and just like that, another chapter in Brad Pitt's romantic saga closed. Neither party ever revealed the full story of why they split, but their breakup added to the growing mystique around Pitt's private life. People began to wonder, was Brad chasing something he couldn't define, or was he simply not ready to settle down? These early relationships weren't meaningless. They helped shape the public's understanding of who Brad Pitt was. John, deeply passionate, occasionally impulsive, and always intensely private. He had the world at his feet, but his love life seemed like an unsolved riddle. Women wanted to be with him, and the industry wanted to cast him. But beneath the fame was a man who, despite all the attention, hadn't yet found his emotional anchor. Each romance left a mark, not just on Pitt's heart, but on the audience watching. His time with Juliette Lewis showed his rebellious edge. His relationship with Gwyneth offered a glimpse of real vulnerability. But none of them lasted. None of them stuck. Still, all of it was leading somewhere. Through each breakup and tabloid headline, Brad Pitt was evolving. He was learning what he needed, what he feared, and what he couldn't live without. And just when it seemed like he'd stay the charming bachelor forever, fate stepped in. Right after Gwyneth, in the quiet calm of a private introduction set up by their managers, Brad Pitt met Jennifer Aniston. And from that moment forward, everything changed. Brad and Jen, Hollywood's royal couple. There was no explosion, no grand reveal, no movie set kiss. When Brad Pitt met Jennifer Aniston in the late 90s, it didn't begin like a Hollywood script. It began with a quiet introduction set up by their managers. They were both freshly out of relationships, still nursing emotional bruises from highly publicized breakups. Brad had just parted ways with Gwyneth Paltrow, while Jennifer was moving on from her long-term relationship with actor Tate Donovan. Neither of them was looking for a headline. But what started as a low-key meeting quickly turned into a full-blown love story. Their first date, by all accounts, was easy. "It was really fun," Aniston later said. "It was really easy." There were no fireworks, no pressure, just two megastars discovering they spoke the same emotional language. In a city of pretense and polish, they found something simple and unforced. It was a connection that didn't need selling. For a while, they kept things quiet. They dodged cameras, skipped red carpets, and avoided any public acknowledgement. But by 1999, the rumors were too loud to ignore. That fall, they made their first official appearance as a couple at the Emmy Awards, Brad in a tuxedo, Jen in a stunning red gown. They didn't need to say a word. The look in their eyes said it all. The press declared it the birth of Hollywood's golden couple. Glamour met groundedness. A-list fame met sitcom royalty. And the world couldn't get enough. Just a few months later, Brad proposed at a Sting concert in New York City. The moment was private, but the aftermath was anything but. The ring, a custom-designed diamond and platinum piece, was a masterpiece. 7 months of planning and design went into it. Brad wasn't just smitten, he was serious. He had once said he was only getting married once, and this time, he meant it. In July of the year 2000, they got married with great pomp in a Malibu event. The ceremony was, by celebrity standards, an intimate affair with only 200 guests and enough star power to light the sky. Fireworks lit the sky. Musicians played on the beach. It was less a royal wedding and more a California dream. And when it came time for vows, their words weren't cookie-cutter romance. Jennifer promised to make him his favorite banana milkshake. Brad vowed to always let her control the thermostat. It was quirky, endearing, and incredibly human. From that moment on, they were untouchable. Brad and Jen became the modern image of love in public. Stylish, successful, and down-to-earth. They appeared at awards shows hand in hand, took vacations in Cabo, and attended premieres together. They were no longer simply actors. They were a brand. Paparazzi followed them everywhere, and every interaction was dissected for signs of baby news, tension, or secret plans. Together, they even ventured into business. In 2001, they co-founded Plan B Entertainment, a production company that would go on to produce Oscar-winning films. There was a sense that they weren't just in love, They were building something, a partnership that extended beyond romance. And then there was that unforgettable cameo on Friends. Brad played Will Colbert, an old classmate of Ross and Monica's with a vendetta against Rachel Green, played, of course, by Jennifer. The episode aired on Thanksgiving and instantly became a fan favorite. Watching them trade witty barbs on screen, you could feel the chemistry, playful, unfiltered, real. For fans, it was perfect. Brad and Jen weren't just Hollywood's sweetheart couple. They were proof that sometimes love could be both dazzling and down to earth. They made it look easy. They made it look fun. They made people believe. But even fairy tales have their shadows. Because as radiant as they appeared, cracks had already begun to form behind the scenes. And soon, the world would see that not even Hollywood's golden couple was immune to real-life heartbreak. Trouble in Paradise and the painful split. For a time, Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston seemed untouchable. They were the couple every magazine praised and every fan rooted for. Red carpets, glowing interviews, shared dreams, it all painted a picture of bliss. But beneath the curated image, real problems were growing, quietly and steadily, until they could no longer be hidden. By 2003, quiet murmurs of trouble had begun to circulate. Nothing dramatic, no confirmed scandals, just the subtle tension that even the most perfectly lit photographs couldn't hide. Friends close to the couple started noticing a distance. The sparkle in their eyes at public events was dimming, but fans weren't ready to believe it. They clung to the hope that Brad and Jen were the real deal. Jennifer Aniston had begun to speak more publicly about her desire to start a family. In interviews, she was open about wanting kids. "I think you can do it all," she told The Guardian, meaning a thriving career and motherhood. She wasn't looking to give up acting. She just wanted to balance it with building a family. Brad, too, had mentioned wanting children, at one point dreaming of having 7. But as the months passed, nothing happened, and speculation grew. Their careers, which had once been in sync, now seemed to pull them in different directions. Jennifer was still filming Friends, preparing for its final season. Brad was leaning into more serious film roles, seeking artistic credibility. The distance between them, emotional and physical, started to show. There were fewer shared appearances, fewer candid smiles. Something was shifting. Then came the W magazine interview. Jennifer, ever poised and honest, was asked whether Brad was the love of her life. Her answer wasn't what fans expected. "I don't know," she said. "He's certainly a big love in my life." It was a moment of truth wrapped in grace. She wasn't bitter. She wasn't dramatic. But she was clear. Something had changed. Behind the scenes, they were trying. They were attending events together, smiling for cameras, even vacationing with friends. But those closest to them sensed it. This wasn't just a rough patch. This was the beginning of the end. Then came their New Year's trip to Anguilla in early 2005. It was supposed to be a reset, a chance to reconnect. Instead, it became a final chapter. Shortly after returning, the couple released a joint statement announcing their separation. They insisted it wasn't due to any scandal or betrayal. "We happily remain committed and caring friends," the statement read. It was dignified, polite, controlled. But fans were devastated. Brad and Jen were supposed to be forever. Their breakup felt like a collective heartbreak. The public didn't just mourn the end of a relationship, they mourned the loss of something they had believed in. In March 2005, Jennifer officially filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. The court documents were straightforward, but the emotional weight behind them was anything but. For Jennifer, It was the end of a chapter filled with love, confusion, and mounting pressure. For Brad, it was a turning point that would lead him down a very different path. And yet, even in the wake of their split, both remained remarkably respectful. There were no public insults, no ugly interviews. They kept their dignity intact. But the headlines kept spinning. People wanted answers. They wanted someone to blame. And then came the photographs. Brad, barefoot on a beach in Kenya, Angelina Jolie by his side, her son Maddox playing in the sand nearby. In that moment, the story changed completely. It wasn't just a breakup anymore. It was a scandal. Brangelina, the scandal that overshadowed it all. If Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston's split had stunned the public, what came next shook the very core of Hollywood. The moment those now infamous photos surfaced, Brad on a beach in Kenya, Angelina Jolie beside him, playing with her son Maddox, the narrative changed. Overnight, the world's favorite couple had become the center of a love triangle scandal that dominated tabloids for years to come. At the time, Pitt and Jolie were starring in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, a high-octane action film about two married assassins who discover they've been hired to slay each other. On screen, the chemistry was explosive. Off-screen, it sparked immediate speculation. Were they just acting, or was something real unfolding between them? Both stars adamantly denied any affair. Brad and Jennifer had maintained there was no overlap, no betrayal. But the world wasn't convinced. The beach photos felt like confirmation. Though Brad and Jen's separation had already been announced, the timing and intimacy of the images stoked a media firestorm. Headlines screamed betrayal. Fans rushed to defend Aniston, who suddenly became a symbol of heartbreak and resilience. Jolie, on the other hand, was cast in the role of the other woman, despite never admitting to a relationship with Brad during filming. Angelina later told the New York Times that she and Brad had developed a deep friendship while filming Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and that they only fell in love after the shoot. It wasn't meant to be controversial, but her words added fuel to an already raging fire. To the public, it didn't matter when the relationship started, only that Jennifer Aniston seemed blindsided. And yet, Jennifer never lashed out. She took the high road. In a now famous Vogue interview, she referred to the situation as uncool, a quiet but sharp statement that echoed how millions of fans felt. She didn't need to tear anyone down. Her silence spoke volumes. Brangelina became a phenomenon. The media crowned them Hollywood's hottest couple, and the couple milked all their charm for the world. Together they traipsed about the globe, adopting children from Cambodia, Ethiopia, and Vietnam, and having biological kids of their own later on. The duo was not dating. They were building a legacy. Angelina, an extreme humanitarian, even took Brad along for the ride to a life filled with humanitarian endeavors, international advocacy, and family on an epic scale. To many, this trade-in felt like one big exchange of lives, where the simplicity and charm of his lifestyle with Jennifer were traded in for something heavy and complicated. It stopped being about romance. It was about image, purpose, and rebirth. Jennifer and Angelina couldn't have presented a more contrasting picture. Jen was comfort, warmth, and the girl next door. Angelina was motivation, passion, and world glamour. The media fed on the comparison and pitted them against each other in a storyline neither woman wished to be a part of. For the next several years afterward, every awards show, magazine cover, and red carpet event would be painstakingly analyzed for signs of rivalry or unspoken feelings between the two actresses. Brad, meanwhile, remained largely quiet, publicly focusing on his growing family and charity work. But the shadow of how his relationship with Jennifer ended never fully disappeared. Even as Brangelina became a brand, the public still held on to what was lost. Brad and Jen hadn't just been a couple, they had been an ideal. And now, that ideal was shattered. While Brangelina's fame soared to unimaginable heights, their relationship was built on unstable ground. The intensity that brought them together would eventually tear them apart. But in the wake of their rise, Jennifer was left to rebuild, away from the cameras, away from the scandal. As Brangelina became Hollywood's most powerful pair, Jen quietly began her journey toward healing, growth, and independence. But the public never forgot the original story. And neither, it seemed, did Brad. Divorce, sobriety, and the road to regret. While the world obsessed over Brangelina, Jennifer Aniston was focused on something else entirely: putting her life back together. In the aftermath of her highly publicized split from Brad Pitt, she didn't lash out, disappear, or try to reclaim the spotlight through scandal. Instead, she did something rare in Hollywood. She chose quiet dignity and personal healing. At first, the heartbreak was undeniable. Jen had become a symbol of sympathy, often unfairly reduced to tabloid headlines about being unlucky in love. But that oversimplification ignored the real work she was doing on herself. In interviews, she was honest, not bitter. She acknowledged the pain, but made it clear she was using the experience to grow. "I don't regret any of it," she said during a candid sit-down with Vanity Fair in 2005. "It was a beautiful, complicated relationship, and I do believe we were meant to be together, and that we were meant to have these 5 years together." Her words carried the wisdom of someone who had lived through intense love and survived its unraveling with grace. Jennifer leaned into therapy, close friendships, and her work. Instead of allowing the divorce to define her, she let it sharpen her. She took on new roles that allowed her to stretch beyond Rachel Green, choosing edgier, more emotionally rich characters in films like The Breakup and Marley and Me. The audience that once saw her as America's sweetheart began to appreciate her range and her resilience. Professionally, Jen soared. Personally, she kept things guarded. But in 2011, whispers of a new romance began to surface, this time with actor and screenwriter Justin Theroux. They met on the set of Wanderlust and quickly grew close. For fans, it was a refreshing change, a man who seemed grounded, creative, and low drama. Slowly but surely, Jennifer started showing signs of happiness again. Their relationship moved steadily, without the flash of red carpet reveals or over-the-top gestures. They were spotted on walks, at dinner parties with close friends, and vacationing away from the paparazzi. In 2012, the couple announced their engagement. Jennifer's friends said she was glowing, more at peace than she'd been in years. In 2015, they surprised everyone by tying the knot in a private ceremony at their Bel Air home. There were no media leaks, no extravagant press releases, just close friends, candles, laughter, and a real sense of intimacy. For a while, it seemed like Jennifer had found something solid, a quieter love story, built on mutual respect rather than public spectacle. But time also began to unravel. The separation was announced in 2018 between Jennifer and Justin. Like when she separated from Brad, this announcement was calm and respectful. No scandal and no bitterness. It was two people going in different directions. Once again, Jennifer proved that endings don't have to be destructive. She learned to let go with grace. Through it all, she remained independent and strong. She defined herself not by the men she dated or the ones that didn't work, but rather focused on becoming whole. Friendships did not fall away. Companionships with women like Courtney Cox and Reese Witherspoon endured. Humor, charm, and authenticity continued winning hearts both with the fans and the colleagues. And even when fans were always up to hoping for a Brad-Jen reunion, they never caught Jennifer in that fantasy. She never went retro. Still, she never denied it either. The love, the pain, and the growth that it brought were acknowledged. What she was forging in those years following the divorce was far stronger than any fairy tale. It was a life composed of endurance, self-discovery, and quiet strength. But even as Jen moved forward, the story wasn't over. Because Brad Pitt was beginning to reflect on the past and what he'd left behind. Brad's reflections and quiet regrets. Years after the whirlwind romance, the glamorous wedding, and the painful split, Brad Pitt began to reflect and speak. What he revealed wasn't full of excuses or dramatic revelations. It was quieter than that, and maybe more powerful. With time, age, and distance, Brad Pitt was finally ready to own what he hadn't understood before. In a 2011 Parade magazine interview, Brad surprised fans when he spoke candidly about the early 2000s, a time many assumed was the peak of his life. But instead of nostalgia, his tone was unexpectedly somber. "I spent the 90s trying to hide out, trying to duck the full celebrity cacophony," he said. "I started to get sick of myself." Then came the quote that rattled the public. "I think my marriage had something to do with it." To many, it sounded like blame, like he was pointing fingers at Jennifer Aniston. The backlash was swift. Fans felt betrayed all over again. How could he speak about such a beloved relationship in such a flat, distant way? But Brad wasn't finished. Just days later, in a rare move, he issued a clarification. "It grieves me that this was interpreted this way," he said. "Jen is an incredibly giving, loving, and hilarious woman who remains my friend." He explained that he wasn't speaking about Jennifer, but about himself, that he had been emotionally stagnant, searching for something outside himself to feel alive. It was an admission of restlessness, not resentment. In later interviews, he was even more introspective. Brad admitted he hadn't always been present, that he had used work, parties, even alcohol as distractions. "I was boozing too much," he told GQ Style in 2017. "It became a problem. I'm really, really happy it's been half a year now, which is bittersweet. But I've got my feelings in my fingertips again." That journey toward sobriety didn't just affect his present. It made him re-examine the past, including his time with Jennifer. "We have a lot of life together that isn't erased," he once said in an interview speaking of Aniston. It wasn't a grand declaration, but it was real, and in many ways more moving than a Hollywood love confession. It hinted at something most breakups never allow. A bond that, while broken romantically, still carried weight emotionally. Brad's reflections were especially striking because they came during a time when his other high-profile relationship with Angelina Jolie was unraveling. Unlike his split from Jen, the end of Brangelina was public and bitter. Legal battles, custody disputes, accusations, leaked documents. Suddenly, Brad wasn't the polished leading man. He was a father fighting for time with his kids, and a man trying to rebuild a life in ruins. That contrast made people look at his past differently. With Jennifer, there had been heartbreak, yes, but there had also been peace. No custody fights, no legal mudslinging, just a clean break and quiet endurance. In a strange way, Brad's turbulent years with Angelina brought renewed attention to what he once had with Jennifer. Not because fans were desperate for a reunion, but because the calm that defined their relationship now seemed like something rare. Brad, for his part, never shied away from expressing admiration for his ex-wife. In every public mention, he was respectful, even warm. And when he showed up at her 50th birthday party in 2019, it didn't take long for the media to speculate. But Brad didn't feed the frenzy. He smiled, said little, and let people wonder. His reflections weren't about rewriting history. They were about finally understanding it. And just when fans thought the story had settled, the unthinkable happened. Brad and Jen were caught sharing a quiet, smiling moment backstage at the 2020 SAG Awards. No kiss, no big reveal, just warmth. A look, a laugh, a spark. The confession that stunned everyone. For years, fans held on to hope. Maybe it was wishful thinking. Maybe it was nostalgia. But no matter how much time passed, the question always lingered. Could Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston find their way back to each other? The world got its biggest jolt of hope in January 2020 during the Screen Actors Guild Awards. Brad and Jen were both winners that night. He for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, she for The Morning Show. But it wasn't the awards that captured the headlines. It was a single backstage moment, a photo, a touch, a look. In that now iconic image, Brad holds Jen's wrist as she turns to walk away, both of them smiling like old friends who hadn't missed a beat. For a split second, it wasn't two divorced celebrities, it was Brad and Jen again. The image exploded online. Twitter lit up. Headlines screamed reunion. And for millions of fans, it was a moment that seemed to heal something. But what did it actually mean? According to sources close to both stars, not much, at least romantically. They were happy for each other. They'd remained in contact. And yes, they cared deeply. But getting back together, that wasn't what this was about. It was, by all accounts, something even rarer in Hollywood. A healthy, mature, post-divorce friendship. That same year, the pair participated in a virtual table read of Fast Times at Ridgemont High for charity. Brad played the awkward teen Brad Hamilton, and Jen played Linda, his crush. The moment was cheeky, fun, and loaded with nostalgia. As the two flirted on screen, fellow cast members laughed. It was light-hearted, but also incredibly telling. Their chemistry hadn't gone anywhere, but their dynamic had evolved. Brad called Jen a good friend in interviews. She returned the favor, describing their relationship as comfortable and honest. There was no bitterness, no tension, just history, warmth, and an ease that comes only with time and healing. But of course, the public wanted more. Speculation about a rekindled romance kept surfacing, fueled by every sighting, every comment, every shared smile. Still, both stars stayed silent on the idea of reconciliation. And maybe that silence said more than any statement could. Behind the scenes, their lives were very different. Brad was still navigating the legal aftermath of his bitter divorce from Angelina Jolie. He remained largely estranged from several of his children and was undergoing therapy and recovery from past addiction. Meanwhile, Jennifer had settled into a life of peace. She was focused on her career, her close-knit circle of friends, and a future that didn't rely on anyone else. By 2022, Bovett was reportedly dating Ines de Ramon, a jewelry designer in her 30s. Their relationship drew attention, not because of public declarations, but because of what it symbolized. Brad moving forward. And yet, whispers continued that he still carried a soft spot for Jennifer. Perhaps the most revealing part of this chapter isn't what happened between them, but what didn't. There were no harsh words, no betrayal, just two people who once shared something extraordinary, lost it, and found a way to move through the pain with respect. Brad Pitt's confession may not mean a Hollywood reunion is in the works, but it says something deeper about love, loss, and the weight of what we leave behind. For fans of Brad and Jen, it's a bittersweet moment. Not closure, not a sequel, but maybe, just maybe, a kind of peace. If you found this story as moving as we did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And check out our next deep dive on screen for more untold celebrity truths that leave us wondering what could have been.